What is up, everyone? Welcome to your WWE Crown Jewel 2019 review and discussion. This show is in the books, and this show was a little bit crazy, but also kind of interesting at the same time. So I promised you guys that I would be up here to discuss this today, and I am. I trust that I can be heard and everything. Of course, this is an off-camera podcast this time because this is the middle of the day. I didn't know what I was going to have going on, and I wasn't sure if I was really going to be camera ready. So if my hair and makeup's not done, I don't want to be on camera looking at you guys to scare you. You know what I mean? Let me just make sure I can be heard. But also, good. I don't sound like Darth Vader or anything. All right. So I know that there's a lot of people on YouTube currently right now probably going live. So I know you guys have a lot of choices. And if you are here listening to me right now, I just want to let you know that I very much appreciate you spending the time with me to discuss this show, because all the proceeds from this podcast is going to go to charity. I figured that since Sami Zayn is not allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia, that we're going to give Sami Zayn some money. And Sami Zayn is partnered up with a great charity foundation. You can find it at SamiForSyria.com. This is a charity that's attempting to set up mobile clinics to provide primary and urgent medical care to all of the displaced civilians in the civil war over there. And it's a really good cause, and it's, you know, a way to help others. And since the the Crown Jewel shows or the Saudi Arabia shows tend to be controversial in nature, I figured it would make me feel a lot better if we did something nice here and try to do a little bit something for charity. So again, the way this is going to work is that I'm going to wait 1 week from today. Once we get to next Thursday, I will check and see whatever the ad revenue is on this video. And depending on how much it is, I will either double it or triple it, and that will be my personal donation. And I will also take all of the super chats that are received in this podcast, add that to my donation amount, and donate that all to SamiForSyria.com next Thursday on November 7th. So you can head on over to that website, and I have that in the description below if you want to check that out for yourself. And if you want to bypass me, bypass the middleman, you can just go right over there and make a donation in your own name. But once I do that next week, a lot of times you can make donations anonymous. I will make this one public so everybody can see that it's GoodMicWork commentaries. And if you are here with me today and donating, you know that your money went to a good cause. So that's what we are going to be doing and, dedicating this episode to. We're also going to talk about the matches, because this was quite the show, and there was a lot of surprising things that took place in this, to be very honest with you. And Crown Jewel, of course, took place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This was a pretty good crowd for this thing. I did not see what the official attendance was, but it looked like they had a packed house. The fans looked like they had a good time throughout the duration of the show, which we'll talk about. The men, women, and children there really seemed to enjoy themselves. And I had a couple of things about this pay-per-view that I predicted dead right. And I had a couple things about this pay-per-view that I predicted dead wrong. And one of the biggest things I was concerned about, my biggest question marks going into this show, is what the hell are they going to do with Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez? I know Cain has had a match before, but come on. You're putting him in the WWE ring for the first time, and the title's on the line against arguably your toughest star to ever step foot in the ropes. You know, I can't see Cain, number one, winning, but I almost couldn't see him losing either. And I didn't see what they were going to do. And based on what we saw Brock do to Cain and Ray and Dominic last week on SmackDown, it felt like some revenge was coming his way. And maybe it still is in the form of Rey Mysterio, because it does look like that issue will be continuing on. But believe it or not, they actually opened the show with this match. I am on the West Coast, and I stay up all night, and I keep very strange hours. So a lot of times I'm not quite up by 10 a.m. in the morning. So I knew I kind of had to wake up and watch this show, but I thought that I might even skip the first hour and kind of allow myself time to get something to eat or kind of, get my blood flowing, because I thought the first couple of matches would just be throwaway matches. But when we turned on the TV this morning and immediately see Brock coming out to the ring, I'm like, holy shit, they're starting with this thing. So that's what opened the show, Brock versus Cain Velasquez. And the very first thing that came through my mind when this match opened is I was like, sweet, this means we're not going to see a title change. I would have been very surprised if they're going to do a major title switch like this, that this is not the main event. And I really, as much as I think it's cool that Velasquez is in WWE and I wish him well, and I'm not gonna judge the guy yet because he hasn't done anything. So once he gets some training and gets some matches under his belt and he starts, getting a little bit into his contract, I'll reserve judgment for him later. All I can judge right now is WWE for putting him in a situation like this early. Now, we already had a debacle at Super Showdown last time with Goldberg and The Undertaker, and that's what I was extremely concerned about in this match. Brock, I think, can handle anybody. I think Brock can work with most guys. Brock's a pro. Brock's been doing this for a long time. This is Brock's world. So I was kind of putting my faith in Brock that anything in ring that Kane was lacking, Brock would make up for. So I had so many question marks in this match, and I just didn't personally really want to see Velasquez win the title. And I've also been pretty adamant about normally big, we don't see title changes on these Saudi Arabia shows unless we have to. We saw it last year when Roman had to relinquish the title due to his second bout with leukemia. But this time around, I didn't really see any titles changing hands, which is what I was kind of wrong about, and we'll talk about in the main event. But one thing I knew for a fact that I did not want to see happen was Cain Velasquez winning the title. That would have put him in a tight spot. I wouldn't have known if that really was the right decision, considering that he's unproven. So I was like, they got to figure out a way to get out of this match or something. Plus, Kane is injured, and he's due to have surgery or something like that. So he's likely to be off of TV anyway. So I had just so many question marks. So when this match opened the show, I almost let out a big sigh of relief. I'm like, okay, at least I can pretty much count on, even if they do a screwy finish or a count out or a DQ, Brock's walking out of this match with the title. But what that made me immediately think was, well, if this match is opening, that means Rollins and the Fiend are likely going to close the show, which might change my entire prediction for that match and might wind up helping the Fiend in the long run. So a lot of good things, a lot of good red flags, and a lot of good bells were going off in my head when Brock and Kane opened. And they would go on to surprise us even more because they were smart. They protected Kane. They didn't have him go out there trying to work a match like he did in Mexico. There is no reason for this guy to be throwing head scissors in there. So when they started doing the match like a shoot style match, basically like a UFC style match, and they're fighting positions, and I got to give props to Cain Velasquez and his kicks, which are magnificent, by the way. If you want to make shit look real, that's how you do it. And I had my concerns about Velasquez, especially last Monday on Raw, when Shelton Benjamin got in Rey Mysterio's face and Kane came out to the ring and they got in a little scuffle. He looked like shit. His punches looked like shit. Everything he did looked like shit. And I was like, oh man, what in the world is this match going to look like at Crown Jewel? So the bell rings. Velasquez, by the way, looks really good in combat gear. He's been out in t-shirts and jeans and shit on TV. Hasn't looked very good. Looked a lot better here. And like I said, the match was as short as it was. I kind of liked the UFC style. They were a lot of kicks, a lot of strikes, a lot of takedowns, a lot of very aggressive maneuvers that didn't look like professional wrestling at all, which I liked. And both guys, in the short amount of time they were in there, sold for the other one. Brock had a takedown. He was muscling. He's clearly the stronger of the two, really muscling Kane into the corner. And, Kane, I think, took him down a time or two as well. And the match ends kind of quickly with a couple of counters, and Brock kind of reverses and locks in a Kimura lock on Velasquez, and he tapped right out. I don't know what the official time on this match was, but I think it was somewhere between 4 and 6 minutes, which is extremely short. And the bell rang, Brock won, and he continued the attack after the match with the steel chair, beating down Velasquez, and then Ray got in the ring and started hitting Brock with a chair and ran him off. So the issue is not over. Looks like we're on the cusp of a Rey Mysterio and Brock Lesnar feud, which is going to be really weird. And we'll talk about which brand that feud could happen on, because we currently now have 2 world champions on the same brand. We'll talk about that later. So I thought all of this was wonderful. And when I grabbed my phone right after this finish to tweet out like, wow, holy shit, that was so fast. What did you think I saw? What did you think I saw? I'll tell you what I saw. A bunch of freaking out people. As if the world had ended. This is the worst thing ever. What is WWE thinking? It amazes me how differently I look at things than so much of the audience. That was the last thing in the world I was thinking about, that WWE made some mistake. What did I just mention earlier about Goldberg and The Undertaker? Did you want a repeat of that? What do you think would have happened had Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez worked a 20-minute match? It would have been a 20-minute pile of shit. What they did in this match is what they needed to do. And what is wrong with booking a more realistic looking fight or wrestling match. Wrestling fans always complain that nothing makes sense, right? Well, this made perfect sense, but people are saying it didn't. Velasquez and Brock didn't make any sense. Why wouldn't it make any sense? These are two UFC fighters. How many UFC matches are Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart Iron Man matches? All of them are short. And there's nothing, sometimes in life you don't get the storybook match. Sometimes in life you don't get the storybook ending. Sometimes when your team is at home in Game 7, they fucking lose. Just ask the Houston Astros. So sometimes you don't get what you want. And sometimes life happens. And if Kane thought he was going to take Brock to the limit, and beat him for the title, and Brock surprised him with a quick submission, that happens sometimes. Here's the other thing I'm seeing. Well, this is pointless for Kofi. I saw a lot of Kofi Kingston tweets. Don't get me wrong. I am right there with everybody that was mortified at poor Kofi Kingston losing that title at 5 seconds. Don't get me wrong. Totally, I agree with you. But Kofi was the last thing on my mind in this match. To me, that issue was separate from this. It had nothing to do with Kofi. If anything, this is the craziest part. If you really want to look at this logically, this actually made Kofi look better. Because everybody was like, holy shit, he lost in 5 seconds to Brock Lesnar. What a fucking disgrace. Well, Cain Velasquez, arguably the toughest man on planet fucking Earth, lost to him in 5 minutes. So if Brock Lesnar was able to decisively, for all intents and purposes, squash Cain Velasquez, then maybe that doesn't make the Kofi's loss look that much worse. Maybe it doesn't make it look that bad. If nobody can beat this guy, Brock Lesnar, of course you're not going to beat him. Sure, you lost in 5 seconds, but, who's going to beat this guy anyway? Even the guy that handed Brock's ass to him in the UFC lost to Brock in less than 5 minutes on TV. So the Kofi thing, in my mind, was completely separate from this and shouldn't even be on anybody's mind. Another thing I was seeing, well, the title didn't need to be on the line if all they were going to do is this. Again, what did you want them to do? What did you want them to do? What a waste. You ruined Velasquez. This is what everybody's telling me. What did you want? Did you want that 20-minute match? Because I'm telling you, if we would have gotten that 20-minute match, you would have gotten Goldberg versus The Undertaker Part 2. So consider yourself lucky and stop being such an asshole about everything. This was fine. I will actually, I will actually hand that argument to you. I will agree with people and I'll meet you halfway on this thing. Because a lot of people say, like I just said, well, what did the title have to be on the line for? Okay, fine. You win. It didn't need to be on the line. But you could also make a case for it being on the line because their first match was also for a championship. Ding, 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 ding. Ring any bells? In the UFC, so what's wrong with the second one being for a championship? Now, I agree it didn't need to be there. They could have had a straight one-on-one match, kept the belt on Kofi, and then Brock could have beaten Kane, and then you could have set up the rematch, the rubber match, because now they're 1-1. One win for Kane, one win for Brock. The blow-off should be for the title. You know what? The people who think that are right. You're actually right. I will give you that argument. But it's not enough to overstep everything and let your anger cloud your good judgment to where you say the whole match was a waste and it was a stupid decision and it didn't make any sense and Kofi looked like shit and all this other crap you want to pile on like a district attorney adding charges to some scumbag they hate. You're just piling shit on that 90% of it isn't even true. So for me, I just didn't have a problem with this across the board. Did not care that Brock was the champion. Did not care that he beat Cain Velasquez in less than 5 minutes. Thought it was good. Thought it served a purpose. It did tell a story. I saw that complaint too. It didn't tell a story. Yes, it did. What the fuck are you guys watching? How can you possibly say that? There is an incredible story there between Brock and Kane. Kane beat Brock in 1 round in the UFC. Brock beat Kane in what the equivalent is of 1 round in WWE. He continued the assault later on with the chair. It's still personal. Kane is tight with Mysterio, and we've seen what Brock has done to him and his family. You can set up a return whenever Kane is healthy or trains a little bit more. You do this rematch around Royal Rumble or probably WrestleMania time, and that can be your big rubber match. So I still think it sets up things for the future, and it was realistic because sometimes you see that in the UFC, and you see that in boxing. Were people complaining that it didn't make sense that Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson? No, it's fucking boxing. Sometimes you get your ass knocked out. And sometimes surprising things happen. And sometimes your spoiledness and your entitled nature of the fans doesn't give you what you want. Sometimes you get the opposite. And I understand that sometimes when that opposite sucks, it can really suck, like at Hell in the Cell, and like a lot of other matches the WWE has disappointed us in the past. Rock and John Cena at WrestleMania 29 comes to mind. But in terms of this match and what they accomplished here, I have zero to complain about it. I have -0 to complain about it, which is completely the opposite of all the whining and bitching that I saw on Twitter from a bunch of 11-year-old little girls. Get over yourselves. Goddamn. Anyway, I liked the match. I thought it was great. Congrats to Brock Lesnar, and I am excited to see where it goes in the future. Let's move on to the next match here. This is another one. Now, again, with these fans who want to complain about everything. If you want to complain about anything, let's complain about this next dumbass match. This was the Tag Team Turmoil, largest Tag Team Turmoil match in history, right? It's like every team in WWE, including your 2 sets of Tag Team Champions. But the winners of this match get a trophy that proclaims them the greatest tag team of all time, or the best tag team in the world. Something like that. Kind of like that World Cup bullshit they did last year. So this match, I was like, well, first of all, when you want to talk about things not making sense, if one of your tag team champions does not win this match, what does that say to your tag team titles? If you can just have one match that proclaims another tag team the greatest tag team ever, why even have tag team champions? You should take those 4 tag belts, the Raw and SmackDown belts, and toss them in the trash like Alundra Blaze did on Nitro to the women's title. And you start passing around that fucking trophy for your tag team champions now. Because now you essentially have 3 sets of tag team champions. And they didn't even have either one of the tag team champions in the finish. As dominant as the Viking Raiders were and are, I cannot believe they lost this match. And I was laying in bed watching this shit. I'm pretty sure the OC defeated the Viking Raiders in the end clean, correct? Weren't the Viking Raiders like the last team to come into this match and they lost? I thought they were unstoppable. I thought they were undefeated and would remain so for quite some time, maybe until they ran into the Authors of Pain. And I love the OC. Love them. But I was really surprised they picked up the win here over the Viking Raiders, which I would assume, since both teams are on Raw, is going to set up your title feud now and title program, and maybe OC can take the belts off the Viking Raiders, but the Viking Raiders just fucking won the belts, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea either. Although I love the idea of the OC with all 3 titles, all the gold. Would look great. And who knows what that could mean, for Survivor Series, because we'll talk about some wrestling news as well at the very end here, and there is some interesting news coming across about Survivor Series that it is going to be a triple branded pay-per-view, Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT, which is really interesting. We'll mention that here at the end. But the OC won the Tag Team Turmoil match, and good for them. I think it's great, but I also think it's extremely stupid. Next matchup, probably the most predictable match on the show, Mansoor taking on Cesaro. Again, for those of us who are upset about the Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez match, I was much more upset about Cesaro's pants. What the hell is he doing? Anyway, comes out there and gives Mansoor a great match. One of my favorite things about this match is the interaction from the audience. They legitimately seem to be having a good time. They were very much into this match. They were very much into the whole show, reacting to everything. Excellent job by WWE's production of panning over and catching a lot of the children's reaction. To me, that was the one part of a dirty show like this that puts a smile on my face, because those kids are innocent and they don't know. They haven't even gotten to the age to they realize how fucked up it is over there. But to see them having a good time and smiling and being into the show, money or no money, to me, that makes it worth it. So I liked the audience interaction and their reactions to most of the stuff we saw on the show. And the Mansoor match was fun because it was just an exhibition. They put a great wrestler out there with him to give him a kick-ass match and to put him over. And that's exactly what Cesaro did, because Cesaro's a pro. And Mansoor looked great. Crowd loved him. Wound up picking up the win with a gorgeous moonsault for the 1-2-3. And damn, that match went maybe 15 minutes. I'm not sure the exact time on that either, but it went a decent amount of time. And Cesaro went out there and did his job, and props to him. In the complete opposite of what Cesaro and Mansoor was, we had Strowman and Tyson Fury up next. So this was a mid-card match, and thank God it was, because goddamn, this was shit. That would have been a great Twitter poll. I wish I would have thought to put it up there. Which match was better? I can ask you guys this in the chat. By the way, if anybody is super chatting, let me check. No, not really. I will be answering those if you ask anything. And Dominique, thank you, brother, for your donation there. So which match do you think was better? Goldberg and Undertaker or Tyson Fury and Braun Strowman? It's pretty damn close. Fury, not much his fault. First of all, I will say this. I loved his entrance. It reminded me of Apollo Creed and Rocky IV. Just came out there, and he always, kind of dresses for, wherever he is. And came out there in the full garb and everything. Had a really fun entrance, and it was very, epic looking. And then he gets in there and looked like shit. I mean, this guy needs a lot more work than he's had at the Performance Center. And I'm not going to completely bury the guy because he's a boxer who's been brought in as an attraction and all of that. And apparently this is a one-off, and he should not be back at least. Well, they might have set up for a return, but he's not going to be back at least for a little while. So this was, at least his current agreement was probably just for this one match. So it's not like a Cain Velasquez situation where we got to worry about this big lumbering ape having a 3-year deal and having to learn how to work. But he did not know how to work at all. Couldn't take bumps, couldn't fall, didn't sell, just didn't look good. And real terrible spots on the outside of the ring. Braun, of course, did his run around the ring where he tackles the guy, and that didn't look very good. And we had talked about, and we speculated on this in the podcast last Saturday, that this would be a very likely candidate, even more so than Kane and Brock, for some sort of a non-finish, like a disqualification, count out, whatever. If we were going to see that anywhere, it was probably going to be in this match because WWE was making a point to tell us that we can't have any screwy finish in the Rollins and Fiend match. So this is the one I had kind of earmarked for any sort of funny finish, and that's what we got. And again, I think we dodged sort of a bullet here. We basically we're wounded. We took like a shoulder shot, but Braun didn't take a headshot. You know what I mean? So I was very concerned with Braun Strowman looking like shit. I was very concerned with Braun Strowman fully and completely morphing into the Big Show 2.0 because he is 90% of the way there already. And I just didn't want to see him lose. That would have done nothing for him and it would have just been a bad decision all around. I mean, I hate using the word bury, because in the fans' mind, just losing a match means bury. So I like to just stricken that word from my vocabulary because I think fans overuse it and have raped the meaning of it. But had Strowman lost here, I think this could have been classified as a burial because there's just nowhere for him to go. He cannot be that credible big man, shit your pants when he's coming out monster that he's been. He's already not really that guy. Remember, those of you who've been following me for a long time, and I would live react to Raws and when in Strowman, some of Strowman's better days, in pay-per-views and shit like that. I would be marking out when that guy would be running around the ring or when he'd be chasing Roman Reigns. I'd be like, God damn, how would you like to be chased by that monster? And I've just felt less and less strongly about Strowman with each passing month and each passing year. And this was a loss that I did not want to see him take. So they did the spot where I think he's on the ring apron. Tyson Fury nails him with a right hand, knocks Braun right off. He hits the floor. He's kind of knocked out. He tries to kind of collect himself. He's trying to get back in the ring. He can't get back in the ring in time, even though he's trying, and he gets counted out. So I'm like, okay, I can live with that. Now, of course, I made the mistake of peeking over to Twitter, the most glorious and happiest place on earth. And of course, fans, what? That's stupid. Duh, 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 duh. Dudes, I get it. It was a terrible match, but man, it could have been worse. My main concern here is I didn't give a shit what they did. I didn't care if we saw a finish. I didn't care what the fuck they did. I didn't care if Tyson Fury squatted down in the ring and shit out a live raccoon. All I cared about was that Braun Strowman did not come out of this thing looking like a pile of crap. And even though he lost, it was via countout. He didn't get pinned. He didn't get knocked out. He didn't get humiliated. And I think they might have even set up something to do in the future. but I don't want to see it. I think Tyson Fury's awful, and I would just rather never see this guy on WWE television again. Nothing against him personally. It's just in the wrestling world, he does nothing for me, and he's merely an attraction, and I hope that's the end of that, and Braun Strowman can forget that this ever happened. I want to rewind real quick to the Kickoff show. I did not watch any of that. I know that R-Truth was able to regain the 24/7 title from one of the Singh brothers on the Kickoff show, and they had the Battle Royal that was going to determine AJ Styles' challenger for the U.S. title. Humberto Carrillo won that Battle Royal, and he challenged AJ here in what was a really good match. But again, they're giving Humberto a lot of these opportunities right up front that we've seen before in recent memory, in really recent memory. Like Ali and Buddy Murphy, same thing. Both got high-profile matches against top guys in the company. Ali got a couple of victories. Buddy did not. He did come close to beating Roman Reigns, though. And those guys got those opportunities, got the fans all excited that we might have some new stars on the cusp here, and they've done jack all with them since then. So now I feel like Humberto Carrillo's in the same position. He had a great match with Seth Rollins on Raw, now a couple of them with AJ Styles, came up short in all of them. So now it's like he's immediately going to just be knocked down a couple of pegs. Maybe the whole thing was designed just to get him over and say, hey, look at this guy who can compete with the big players, even though he's not going to be a big player kind of thing, because he is, you got the draft now, so you got some new faces, and you want to get those guys over and get the audience familiar with them and more familiar with them. So I understand putting them in there with top guys, but sometimes that has a reverse effect when you get the fans excited to say, oh my God, awesome, a new guy's getting an opportunity, and then he either loses the matches he's in or he just has a couple of matches and then it's all done. Just like Murphy, just like Ali. 1 minute, they're in the ring with Daniel Bryan. The next week, they're in dark matches. So I think a lot is yet to be answered in terms of the career of Humberto Carrillo, but he put on a good fight here against AJ. AJ, did he tap him out with the calf crusher? He hit the phenomenal forearm for the victory. So, good match, and that's all it was. I didn't expect AJ to drop the belt. I didn't want him to, and he kept it, which is good. Also, I guess R-Truth backstage, I think it was right after this match, R-Truth lost the 24/7 title back to the Singh brothers. I have no idea which one's which. I have no idea which one lost the title on the Kickoff, and I have no idea which one won the title on the main card. But R-Truth won the title back and then lost it back to the Singh brothers. Let me take a quick sip of water here before I get into this next match and check over here to the chat. If y'all could do me a favor and smash that thumbs up. I did not think we were going to have a very big audience in here today. Number one, it's Halloween, and some people might be out trick-or-treating on the East Coast. It's only 3 o'clock here, and I know I have a lot of competition on YouTube right now because at least in my subscriptions alone, I see about 6 other people going live right now. So if you are here, I want to thank you for being here. And also just a reminder for those of you who are not here in the beginning of the video, all of the proceeds of this podcast will be going to SammyForSyria.com 1 week from today on November 7th. Next Thursday, I will take whatever the ad revenue is on this video, and depending on how much it is, I will either double it or triple it and add it to all of the super chat donations that I get, and we will donate that to SammyForSyria.com. I figured since Sammy is not allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia, that we would give his great charity a little bit of money today. So that's the plan for this, in case you guys didn't know. And the next match is one that we weren't expecting to happen. Now, I think WWE, when they signed this deal with Saudi Arabia, their ultimate goal was, before this deal is up, to get a women's match on a Saudi show. And they flew Natty and Lacey over there last time. I'm pretty sure it was the same too. Might have been Alexa, can't remember. In the hopes of maybe getting an 11th hour permission to have a women's match, but no dice last time, and they figured they would try again this time. And yesterday on social media, WWE announces that it's going to be Natalya against Lacey Evans in the very first ever women's professional wrestling match in the country of Saudi Arabia. That's great. I mean, that's crazy, but it's great. So I think it's everybody's going to have their political opinions on this or whatnot, but the bottom line is, if you take WWE out of the equation, because they love to be the ones to break the barriers, and they constantly pat themselves on the back and suck their own dicks about how great they are and this and that. So if you just eliminate them from that and you watch Natty and Lacey compete in this match, it was a very big deal to both of them. You could tell. I mean, you could see it on the face of Lacey. You could see it on the face of Natty. They were even, I mean, I was almost giving Natty a little bit of shit during the match because during some of the moves, she's fucking smiling. I mean, they're basically out there having an admitted exhibition. You know, they were very happy to be doing it. Of course, they were decked out, you know, full on t-shirt over everything, no skin exposed. Luckily, they weren't in a full on beekeeper suit, but they just had to wear, you know, t-shirts and all of that, which is fine. You know, baby steps, right? So they get in the ring. The match is like they're kind of walking through the first part of it, but then it picks up a little bit. Natalya in the end winds up tapping out Lacey Evans in the sharpshooter. Would have been cool if Lacey Evans won with the women's right, don't you think? But whatever. It wasn't about the finish here, and also it wasn't about the match. It was about the match, not about who was in it. Really, for me, I saw a lot of people when this announcement was made tagging me in shit on Twitter, mad that it wasn't like Sasha and Bayley and shit. And I'm like, I think you guys are just missing the complete point here. Who fucking cares who it is? The point is to get two females in that fucking ring in Saudi Arabia. The last thing in the fucking universe I care about is who it is. Didn't care. We've seen that match a whole bunch of times. You don't even care. You didn't even say you're watching the show, so why do you care to begin with? I just think fans bitch to bitch sometimes, and there was a lot of that going on. For me, it wasn't about that. For me, it was about the two of them going out there and putting on a nice little match and really basking in the glory of how important the moment is. I mean, there's never going to be another first women's professional wrestling match in Saudi Arabia. This is it, and they get to go down in the record books as being those two. Would you have preferred it be Charlotte? For everybody who didn't like the choice, Charlotte's given everything in WWE. She's always got to be in the middle of everything, in the center of attention, right? Well, why wasn't she here? You know, so maybe that's not so true after all. But I liked the match, and I actually probably wouldn't have cared about the match at all because we've literally seen it 5 or 6 times on TV. But I liked the match based on the sheer reaction of Natalya and Lacey and how happy they really seemed to be. There were a couple of jerk-offs in the crowd. I think a couple of water bottles got thrown in their direction, which is to be expected. Assholes are all over the place in this world. Not just over there, not just over here. They're everywhere. But the match, Corey Graves and Michael Cole, when they cut to them after the match, they were, kind of choked up about it. And Corey's felt genuine, because you always have to wonder with WWE and them pushing their narrative and all this fucking just garbage that they heap on us constantly. So to see some genuine emotion from people, you could definitely see it all over the faces of Natalya and Lacey Evans and Corey Graves, and even as much as I hate to say it, Michael Cole. So congrats for them for pulling this match off. Thank you for well, I'm not going to thank them, but, I'm glad that we actually made the progress to get this match done. At least it's not something we have to worry about and think about now. And now that you've done one, there's no reason not to do them now. So now this might mean women are going to be a part of these Saudi shows going forward, which would take a little bit of the edge off. Because there's enough controversy with that fucking government and the journalists that they sawed up and put in a duffel bag. And it's bad enough with all the other shit that go on over there and the human rights violations and women can't drive and go to the store and shit and buy milk or whatever. So the fact that we're making baby steps here at least takes the edge off, makes it a little bit easier to swallow, I suppose. But it's not going to stop me from doing every Crown Jewel review for charity. Feel like it's the least we can do, So I thought the match was a big deal in terms of the Saudi Arabia deal that WWE has. And I'm happy for both Lacey and Natalya that they got to be a part of that moment. And one of the least interesting matches, believe it or not, and I was not looking forward to this thing at all, was the Team Hogan versus Team Flair 5-on-5 match. This is not an elimination match, just straight 5-on-5. It was done, it was going to be there very much for the crowd. A lot of entrances. Ricochet had a superhero outfit on. Some guys were dressing up, I think. We had some guys dressing up last night. I know Omega dressed up on Dynamite last night. But the match was just there for the baby faces to win. I picked Team Hogan right from the start in this thing. You know, it didn't do a whole lot to further the angle between Rusev and Bobby Lashley. Lana was also there. She accompanied Lashley to the ring. And Rusev came out with a big-ass smile on his face. You know, I guess he's over her already or something. Seems like he should still be a little bit mad. But in the end, the match was what it was. Ricochet and Ali did the majority of the selling. Roman Reigns was over like a rover in this match. And I also want to say something for this set. You know, like it or not, that is quite an amazing set. That big giant screen there. And Roman's, I think, his entrance looked especially good, you know, with the firework and pyro display and everything. And the crowd was so hot for him. And it would be, you know, pretty safe to assume that he was going to be dominant in this match. And he was. He even got the hot tag, wound up getting the win for his team by nailing a spear on Randy Orton. The crowd loved it. Crowd ate it up. It's one place that Roman is still beloved. And I think the fans have kind of lightened up on him a little bit here in the States as well. But, because he's not, you know, been so shoved down our throats. But for Saudi Arabia, he was the man, and the crowd really enjoyed what he was doing in there. Before we get to the main event, I want to scroll back over here to the chat and just say thank you to Dominique Richardson and Ratnick. Thank you for the $10, brother. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody that is hanging out in here today. A little bit, audience is creeping up a little bit, but this will remain up, and the audio of this will be available in just a little while for download over on my website, and I'll throw it up on the podcast sites and on social media. So if you weren't able to join in live, you'll be able to hear this later. And I will be up here again, of course, this Saturday with a brand new Winged Eagle podcast. And then on Tuesday, I've got my Survivor Series 2001 review, which is a really fun show to go back and look at because I was there. Anyway, let's get on now to the main event. Seth Rollins defending the Universal title against the Fiend Bray Wyatt. I had so much speculation about this match. We talked about it. There were so many factors at play here. I was thinking, number one, where on the card is this match going to fall? Because I thought, number one, we just weren't going to see any title changes on Saudi Arabia. And I really didn't think we would see it in Seth Rollins and the Fiend because, to me, Tyson Fury and Strowman and Brock and Velasquez was taking up the majority of the limelight. And I thought one of those matches, specifically Brock and Kane, would be the main event. So I thought Rollins and the Fiend would be lost in the shuffle. They would be mid-card. And if you're going to put the title on the Fiend, putting it on him in the middle of the card when you still have Lesnar and Velasquez to come later on isn't like a good place to do it. If you're going to do it, you morons should have done it at Hell in the Cell. But when it became clear that this match was going to be the main event, I started changing my mind. I'm like, well, this is really the only way. And shout out to Antoine Fair, who wants credit for this, but what you came up with is the same thing that we all came up with. We all had these same thoughts. And that is the only chance I thought of the Fiend winning the title is this match would have to main event. I just didn't think it would. So when it became clear that it would main event, of course, that's going to change things. Everybody thinks that. So when this match was the main event, I'm like, whoa, they might do it. Because they made a big deal about how the match can't be stopped and all this shit. And I had some other ideas. I was brainstorming last night, and I was like, you know, the Fiend is kind of a supernatural type character. If they want to tap into some of the shit that The Undertaker or Kane used to do back in the day, you could do some sort of a weird match where, you know, you can't stop the match, but maybe the Fiend doesn't necessarily have to be pinned. Maybe he can fall down a giant pit and, you know, and perceivably be dead. Or maybe he can just vaporize. Maybe he can explode. Maybe he can do some sort of a special effect type of thing that Bray Wyatt just disappears into thin air. And nobody can find him, and the match has to end because Bray's not there. Remember when The Undertaker died at the Royal Rumble 1994 in the casket match? And he levitated up to heaven or whatever the fuck? You know, they could have done something like that to where, you know, sure, you're not stopping the match, but the match is stopped because Bray disappeared. And then he can show back up the next night on SmackDown or next week on Raw or something like that and continue his deal with Seth Rollins. So I thought that might be one way for them to get out of this without beating the Fiend, because you don't want to beat the Fiend. I felt like he was so close to being ruined as it is after the Hell in the Cell. You know, and he's been taking losses on house shows and shit. So I was really worried that WWE has booked themselves into a corner to where no matter what outcome they do, it's going to suck and it's going to fucking ruin somebody. And Seth Rollins, I have not heard this yet, but Seth Rollins apparently didn't make any more friends on the Corey Graves podcast or the After the Bell, which I didn't even know had launched yet. And he was on there apparently kind of coming off real dicky and immature, and the fans are all mad about it, which again just makes me laugh. You're probably right. I'll take a listen to it later, and I'm sure Seth Rollins comes off as a douche, you know, but come on, this is wrestling. When I see that on Twitter of all places, when the worst, you know, the rudest, most horribly behaved jerk-offs in the world reside on Twitter are going to get mad at Seth for being a jerk, I'm like, all he's doing is acting like you. So just look in the mirror before you rip his head off. But I agree, maybe babyface champions should be more mindful of that and try to say the right things, and Seth never seems to. He does seem to have an arrogance to him or a cockiness to him, and he is a company guy. I thought the fans were idiots for jumping down his throat about calling AEW minor leagues. What the fuck do you think he's supposed to say? Stone Cold Steve Austin said the same thing about WCW when Bill Goldberg challenged him on the Jay Leno show. Austin said no. When he graduates from the minor leagues, I'll take him on in a match, which is literally exactly what Seth Rollins said about Kenny Omega when asked about a potential match with him. Well, when he's done playing with the minor leagues, I'll take him on in WWE. And the fans acted like he raped their mother. Give me a break. So I'll take a listen to what Seth Rollins said on Corey Graves' podcast, and I will decide for myself. I'm sure as shit not going to take y'all's word for it, but I won't be surprised if Seth comes off like an asshole. So that made things even weirder for this match, because if they do keep the belt on Seth, you know he's going to show up on Raw on Monday and get booed out of the fucking building because they completely screwed him in the Hell in the Cell. He was the scapegoat here. He was the guy that had to take all the heat and was left holding the bag for the match when it wasn't his fault. He didn't book it. He didn't write it. He didn't do anything. But the fans have been up his ass ever since then. So I'm like, how do you escape this? How do you have Seth Rollins keep the title here and then go on Raw and be cheered? You don't. It's not going to happen. I've been begging for WWE for the past couple of months, ever since Seth Rollins started rubbing the fans the wrong way, and ever since he had the gall to mention his bank account to Will Ospreay. Yeah, like you've never seen a YouTuber or dude do that? Brag about how great their life is and shit? Give me a break. So since he did that, he was been in the doghouse ever since. And I'm like, well, let's turn him heel. I liked Seth as a heel back in the day. I liked his 2015 title run when he was a heel. He's great. That would probably be a better spot for him at this point. We've even talked about the insane idea of a double turn. We were actually thinking that. How can a guy like Bray Wyatt walking around with a fucking severed head be a babyface? But WWE nearly did it with that screwy-ass Hell in the Cell finish. So, again, it's one of those special circumstances. I don't think that maybe the initial plan was to do a title change in the Saudi Arabia show. I think they were forced to, kind of like they were last year with Roman Reigns. Because now, if they don't do it here, holy shit. You know, the fans in attendance, I think will be cool, because the Saudi Arabian crowd is there to react and have a good time. It's the fans here that are going to be pissed, which is going to leave WWE in a world of shit when they get back home, which apparently they're all boarding a plane right now and hauling ass back here to get in town for SmackDown, wherever the hell it is. I don't even know. So I had my concerns. So when this match went on last, I was like, well, maybe there's a chance. And they did the red lights again. The Fiend came out with the severed head, which I was surprised they did that, but he did. And they had the red lights. They fought all over the place. It wasn't even that great of a match. It was exactly what we thought. They fought in the ring, outside the ring, up the ramp, and up to the stage. During the course of all this, the Fiend takes 7 curb stomps. I think 7, possibly 8. Takes a bunch of curb stomps, kicks out of everyone. Eventually, he's up on the stage kind of teetering off the ledge where there's a whole bunch of electrical equipment. So they set up a big spot here, very reminiscent of Mick Foley at the Royal Rumble 99. Seth knocks off Bray Wyatt. He falls onto the electrical boxes and disappears while sparks and explosions happen. And I was thinking that my prediction came true, because that's what I said. I'm like, you know, they might do something to where He just, remember when Undertaker powerbombed Muhammad Hassan through the stage, something like that, to where, he was just dead. So I thought maybe they could get out of it that way. So when they did the big explosion and Bray fell into the electrical equipment, I'm like, oh God, that's how they're going to do it. I was like, I don't think that's going to be enough to get the fans off of your back. I think the fans are going to be pissed about this finish, especially when you've mentioned that the match cannot be stopped for any reason. So Bray falls through all this stuff. Seth climbs down the stage to go find him. And then this spot was hokey as hell and corny as hell. So Seth gets over to the electrical boxes. He's kind of looking for Bray Wyatt. And another explosion goes off. But it goes off probably 10, 15 feet away from Seth Rollins. Not anywhere near his face. But he starts selling that he's blinded. He's like, I can't see. And he kind of topples to the ground. And then the Fiend rises from the dead, shows up, grabs Seth, hits Sister Abigail, and gets the 1, 2, 3 right there on the concrete floor, and is your new Universal Champion. By the way, we had a draft a few weeks ago that sent Bray Wyatt to SmackDown. So SmackDown has 2 championships now. What the hell does that mean? So Bray Wyatt is your new Universal Champion, y'all. He did it. Now, I'm happy that he won the title, but I'm also pissed that he did not win the title at Hell in the Cell. So what do you guys think it was? Do you guys think that this was the plan all along, to do the non-finish at Hell in the Cell and have Bray take the title at Crown Jewel? Or do you think the plan was to do a non-finish at Hell in the Cell and maybe have Bray take the title somewhere else? Not necessarily Crown Jewel, maybe somewhere down the line, but because of the backlash from the audience of Hell in the Cell, they went ahead and fast-tracked it here and did it at Crown Jewel. I'm curious which one of those two it is. I mean, it might have been the plan all along, to do this, but I just think that this should have been maybe the rematch. Seth Rollins drops the title at Hell in the Cell, the Fiend beats him in the rematch, and then everybody moves on with their lives, right? So the whole thing is weird to me, and to make matters weirder, right from the start, I've been questioning whether or not Bray Wyatt is really going to stay on SmackDown, because prior to the draft, I think the only real prediction I made was that Bray Wyatt would probably stay on Raw. And he wound up getting drafted to SmackDown, which I thought that was weird. And then I speculated last Saturday on the Winged Eagle podcast that maybe they just want to give Fox like a taste of the Bray Wyatt character. Just a taste of that funhouse, show the Fox audience what a creative and unique gimmick this is and how WWE can not only do sports, but they can do horror movies too. Give them a little taste of that and then move them over to Monday Night Raw. Well, now that you have 2 champions over there, plain and simply, somebody has to move. Because what the fuck is going on? Here you did this draft. Oh, we're going to have exclusive brands now. And right off the bat, you got interpromotional matches and championships changing brands. You dumbasses. So one of 2 things has to happen, right? Bray Wyatt either needs to get traded over to Raw to continue his feud with Seth Rollins, or Brock Lesnar needs to be traded over to Raw to continue his feud with Rey Mysterio and Cain Velasquez, who they say the reports are will be staying on the Raw brand, even though I don't think he was drafted. So which one do you guys think it'll be? Is the Universal title now on SmackDown? And is the WWE title going to come back home to Raw? That makes more sense, because another thing that I questioned about Brock being there, because a lot of the fans were saying prior to SmackDown going to Fox, oh, Fox is going to demand Brock. They want Brock. Fox is telling WWE to put Brock there. I'm like, okay, I know that's really, really fun to say, but does it make sense? Is Fox aware of Brock's contract? Is Fox aware that Brock hasn't wrestled a TV match in 15 years? Is Fox aware that Brock only shows up every couple of months? Unless Brock is going to take a new contract for more dates, I don't think Brock Lesnar being on Fox really makes a whole lot of sense. Because if that's becoming your A show now, you don't want your A show not having a champion on TV. So you put Brock back on Raw, it's right back to business as usual, like we're used to dealing with on Monday Night Raw, and we don't have a champion anymore. So Which one do you think it's going to be? I'm starting to lean towards Brock maybe going back to Monday Night Raw and the WWE title being that brand's title, which I'd be fine with. But I could also see maybe Bray Wyatt going there. Apparently there is, a lingering trade. I don't think Raw ever really got anybody for Alexa and Nikki Cross, did they, in storyline for that trade? Not that those two would be enough to get Wyatt or Lesnar over there, but maybe that can still be factored in. You're going to have to do a trade of some kind now. They'll probably pretend like the Fox and the USA people are coming together to make some sort of a deal because USA wants a champion. They'll come up with something stupid like that, but it can probably go one of those two ways. Let me answer a couple of more questions here in the chat, and then I'll get into the wrestling news, and I've got some ratings news for AEW and NXT. Where did I leave off? Ratnick, I saw yours. Thank you, brother, to giving for this good cause today. Thomas Arita, thank you to you too for the $5. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for donating to a great cause. Right back at you, my friend. You are donating just like the rest of us. Michael Cuomo, good to see you in here as well. Thank you for the $5. So is Seth going to turn heel now? Also, you're doing an awesome cause. Yes, I hope he's going to turn heel. I mean, and thank you. I'm really happy that we're doing this for charity, and I appreciate all you guys, hanging out and contributing as well. But I can't see any other way around this. They have to turn him heel. Seth, made a lot of enemies. And like I said, later on today, I'll check out and listen to what he said on Corey Graves' podcast or whatever. But it's really hard to see this guy come out there and try to be a babyface. And it's infuriating if they're trying to make him the new Roman Reigns in the terms of them just insisting that this guy is a main eventer. Insisting that he's a babyface. Because he is a main eventer. I should have said babyface. And doing the exact same thing with Seth that they did with Roman Reigns. And, with Seth, in a lot of fans' minds, Seth is a lot much better of a wrestler than Roman Reigns. So you don't want to see him treated like this. If WWE wants to make the next Rock, or they want to make the next John Cena, like they were clearly trying to do with Roman Reigns for so long, fine. They had chance after chance, just like they did with Cena, to turn this guy heel and to really make some waves and to really make a splash in professional wrestling and create some buzz. Think of the trajectory of the business had they turned John Cena heel at WrestleMania 29. That would have been fantastic, but they didn't. And they've had so many opportunities that they've just refused because they've been too scared, because they just are determined to make this guy the top babyface, or they don't want to lose the merchandise revenue, or whatever the reason is. There's always some sort of a reason. And I don't want to see them do that with Seth Rollins. They've already failed miserably at it twice by not turning guys heel when you should have, with Roman and Cena. And we've been noticing the way Seth's been getting these victories, 2 victories over Brock. In a lot of ways, he's looked stronger than Roman Reigns, because a lot of fans used to complain that Roman always won, but he really didn't. He lost a lot of matches to Brock Lesnar and to Braun Strowman. Those guys beat him, and Seth Rollins came out on top of all of his encounters with those guys. Beat Strowman clean, beat Brock clean. Everybody he's been in the ring with, he's defeated, and he's had a great last 12 months in the company. So to me, now that he's dropped the belt, it would be in his best interest, since he likes to talk all that shit on podcasts and on social media, to do that on the microphone on Monday Night Raw. Because he was good at it before. He's not a good babyface, just plain and simply. But I think Seth can be a good heel. And I think some of his limitations that he has on the mic can be protected more as a heel, because it's real easy to be a douche. Any wrestler that you talk to, any veteran wrestler, everybody will say that it's harder to be a babyface than it is to be a heel, because heel takes no effort. All you got to do is be an asshole. All you got to do is insult the fans. Insult their sports team, whatever you got to do. And Seth is doing a really good job of pissing off the majority of the hardcore fans of wrestling, just on podcasts and in his behavior on social media. A heel turn seems like the perfect thing to do for this guy right now. So, Michael, I hope you're right, and I hope as soon as this Monday he turns heel, or maybe he even crashes SmackDown and attacks the Fiend or something there. I don't know. But yeah, heel turn has definitely got to be in his future. Barry, good to see you in here, man. Thank you for the $2. You hate the red lights. You can't see anything. I've never been a fan of the red lights either. I wasn't really a fan when Kane did it back in the day, and I'm not much of a fan of it now either. I just don't know if they're going to continue that for every one of Bray Wyatt's matches. I have a feeling that they are going to do that. Corwin Eberly, thank you, brother, for the $2. You think this was damage control? Okay, that was the question that I asked. And for those of you just tuning in, I just asked a little while ago that what do you think the original plan was for Seth and Bray Wyatt? Do you think the Fiend winning the title tonight was a result of them fucking up Hell in the Cell? Or was this the plan all along, to do the non-finish at Hell in the Cell and set up the rematch here where the Fiend would get the belt? I am leaning towards Corwin. I think you're right. I think this might have been more damage control because otherwise they could have made this the rematch and the blow-off and move these guys on with their lives. Have the Fiend win at Hell in the Cell, defend the title once against Seth, and boom, you're done. But they went in the opposite direction, and I don't know. I think I'm kind of with you, man. I think this might have been damage control. We got a couple of more coming in here. Thank you, Nikita, for the $5. I appreciate it for a good cause. Yes, sir, indeed it is. Diakis Prime, or Diakis Prime. Hope I'm saying that right. I'm just here to donate, keep up with the logical wrestling commentaries. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, everybody that's been hanging out today. The audience has greatly increased. We started out the first 15 minutes of this with less than 100 people. Now we got about 300 in here. And again, thank you, because I know after a show like this, you have a lot of choices of live streams to watch on YouTube. In my subscription box right now, I see 6 people live. So the fact that almost 300 of you are in here listening to me, I very, very much appreciate that. And if you are just getting here now and you want to hear my complete review of all of these matches, just go back to the beginning and you can listen straight through. I'm going to put the audio up to this podcast on my website here in just a little bit. It'll be available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and wherever podcasts are sold. The last bit of news I want to discuss here before I get out of here is that it was announced, like I said earlier, that the Survivor Series, and we don't have any more details on this other than this, but Survivor Series will be a tri-branded pay-per-view. It's going to be Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. Now, as we saw last night on NXT, they're also setting up War Games. We have the first ever female War Games match now set, which is awesome, and it looks like they're setting up the men's War Games as well, with Undisputed Era and Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, Tommaso Ciampa, and maybe one other person. But apparently Survivor Series is going to be Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. So I don't know if this is going to be 5-on-5s. I don't know if this is going to be a champion versus champion deal. It looked like they were going to abandon, or at least that's what we heard, the champion versus champion shit that they do at Survivor Series every year. We weren't going to get that this year, but maybe we are. Now that NXT is involved, and this definitely sets up some interesting matches. And shout out to my buddy Daniel, who might be listening right now. He just texted me about a minute before we went live here, and he said, do you think we now get a Fiend versus Demon WrestleMania match? And I was like, well, I don't think so. I kind of feel like Finn Balor is going to stick around in NXT for a while. But if it's NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown, shit, maybe we can get the Balor and Fiend match at Survivor Series. I don't think so. I think we're going to get Balor and Gargano, but maybe that's a match that could happen at Survivor Series. And I definitely think that rematch needs to happen, and the Demon should take on the Fiend. But with Finn Balor kind of being reborn, and he's a heel now in NXT, I'm in no rush to see that. And because you would think that if that match were to happen now, the Fiend's going to win. So maybe you can save this to where when the Fiend character runs its course, the Demon can be the one to beat him sometime in a year from now or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I think that match should happen. But in terms of Survivor Series and what we're going to see there and what kind of matches we're going to see, not sure yet. I know a lot of that will be kicked off tomorrow night on SmackDown. They should jump right into the build here for Survivor Series, you would think. And hopefully we'll get some answers on that tomorrow and on Monday for Monday Night Raw. We also had the ratings for AEW and NXT come in, and boy, are they bad. And they're bad. Now, right off the bat here, in defense of both shows, we had Game 7 of the World Series last night between the Houston Astros and Washington Nationals. I was half-ass rooting for Houston. I didn't really care who won this because I just didn't care. But I'm a big Justin Verlander fan. He put a lot of years in Detroit, my hometown. And just for him, I was rooting for the Astros just to see him win another one. But they didn't. They lost. And what was interesting about this World Series is that both teams lost every game at home. Not one team won a game at home. And Houston had home field, and they lost all 4 games and won all 3 on the road. Fucking crazy. But they did 23 million viewers for Game 7 of the World Series. So to say that that took away from wrestling would be an understatement. It absolutely did. Because a lot of people, there's still DVR, and there's still, you can record this shit and watch it later and watch the highlights. I didn't watch either show last night. I was working. I took tonight off instead because Halloween sucks in restaurants and they're slow, and I didn't want to be there. So I worked last night instead and didn't watch the show, watched them both on the recording when I got home last night. But yeah, those ratings are bad, man. They both dropped significantly. About 200,000 apiece drop in ratings for both of those shows. And SmackDown had a severely alarming rating last week as well because they were bumped to FS1 and did less than half, almost, a third less of a rating than they did the previous 2 weeks, or their ratings were 3 times more, excuse me. So yeah, kind of alarming ratings numbers here coming across, but at least we had Game 7 of the World Series. Next week should be pretty telling because that will be the go-home show to Full Gear for AEW. So we'll see how the ratings bounce back next week if they do it all. But yeah, both companies took a pretty significant dip, and it was not a good week at all for WWE or AEW in the ratings. So that pretty much wraps it up for my review here. How long have I been going? All right, we've been going over an hour here. I figured that's about how long it would be. I am going to go back to the chat here and see if there's anything I missed. Super chat wise, yes, Jordan Plays, appreciate it, man. Thank you for the $2. Really glad Bray won the title. You know what? I am too. I said that. I'm very glad that he won, but I'm also infuriated that he just didn't fucking win it at Hell in the Cell, because that would have made everything fine. If he just would have won at Hell in the Cell and you did the rematch here, it's all you needed to do. But they went all over hell and gone to accomplish this, but at least they didn't do something screwy, because like I said, the minute Bray Wyatt fell through that electrical equipment and the sparks and explosions started happening, I'm like, oh shit, that's the finish. Because I thought if the match can't be stopped for any reason, the one way it could be stopped is if Bray just disappears or vaporizes or explodes or disintegrates or levitates to the heavens like The Undertaker did at the Royal Rumble in 1994. I thought it was going to have to take something like that for Bray to walk out of this match without the title. Otherwise, WWE's going to fuck themselves directly in the ass. Which sucks. Chris Hess saying, is Verlander 0-6 in the World Series? He wasn't there with Houston when they won it a couple years ago? Besides, my sports knowledge is so off these days. I actually thought he was with Houston when they won, but I guess not. Yeah, poor Verlander. I was rooting for him, though. But who cares? I don't really give a shit about baseball one way or the other. So yeah, and the thing with Bray winning, Jordan, it was great and everything. I just kind of would have rather seen it at Hell in the Cell. But at least they didn't screw it up 2 pay-per-views in a row. At least they didn't put themselves in a horrible position having Seth Rollins win this match somehow and then show up on Raw on Monday with the title, fresh off of this defeat of The Fiend that's going to piss the fans off, fresh off of the podcast with Corey Graves that has gotten the fans, pink lacy thongs all in a knot. And he's going to go out there with that belt, all smiling as your babyface and be cheered? I don't think so. So WWE absolutely did the right thing here by putting the belt on Bray, but that right thing should have been done earlier this month at the previous pay-per-view. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. I appreciate it. Yeah, Verlander was there. Yeah, who's that 0-6 guy? You are wrong, Chris Hassan. Wrong. Thank you, guys. I'm not crazy. So I'm not that stupid with sports, because the YouTube channel and the podcast over the past couple of years has really limited my knowledge of sports. I'm only able to watch it about half the amount of time as I used to be able to watch it, because I now have a second job up here on the YouTube. So again, I want to thank you guys for joining in today. Like I said, 1 week from today, I will check the ad revenue on this video. Whatever it is, I will likely triple it. If it's a lot, I'll double it, but likely I'll triple whatever the ad revenue is. That will be my personal donation, and I will add that to every single super chat that we got here today, and we will donate that to SammyForSyria.com next Thursday on November 7th. I want to wish you guys a great rest of your Halloween night. If you have little ones and you're taking them out trick-or-treating, I hope you have a good time. I hope they share their candy with you. And whatever you're up to tonight, if you're partying and you're an adult and you're going to go out drinking and out in the town all dressed up in a costume, I wish you a fabulous time. I will catch you guys on Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific for a brand new Winged Eagle podcast. Until then, y'all be good and have a good day. Peace.